Hi, welcome back. In this video we will learn about DAX variables. Variables can be declared in all three different types of calculations like calculated columns, measures and calculated tables. Variables enables readability, performance and debugging features in DAX formulas. Variables makes complex calculations more understandable by breaking them into smaller parts. Variables allows reusing a computed value, so DAX doesn't have to recalculate it multiple times. Variables makes debugging easier to test or comment out intermediate calculations. Let's deep dive by creating some examples. When we create a measure or column or a table, after the equal to sign we can start creating the variables using keyword var. In this example measure, we have created two variables called num1 and num2. Using keyword var, we can create as many variables as need for the calculations. Once the required variables are created, then we end the variable creation block by adding return statement. After the return keyword, we can return num1 or num2 or an expression using num1 and num2 like addition. Or we can totally return something else like value 20. It is not mandatory to use the variables after the return statement. While creating the variables, we cannot use the DAX keywords like sum, or average, or sumx. This will return an error by highlighting the variable with underline. As you can see, it throws an error saying sum is a reserved word. So be careful while choosing the variable names. And always create a meaningful variable names. The variable names in DAX are not case sensitive. Num1 in small letters is equal to num1 in capital letters after the return statement. But it's better to maintain the same case like uppercase or lowercase. As you can see, when you maintain same case, when we choose any variable it will start highlighting its usage in whole calculation, which is easy to follow. In this calculation, we are trying to find the sum of both numbers num1 and num2 is greater than 0. If so, we are returning the sum of the numbers. Otherwise, we are returning 0. The problem with this calculation is we are doing addition twice when the number is greater than 0. So better create another variable and assign the value, which will increase the performance by reducing the operations. Here we replace the addition expression with num3, which makes calculation simplified. This is why we need variables where we calculate once and use it multiple times. This is just a simple example. In real-world projects, we do much more complex calculations. In this measure example, we are creating nested variables. When we create nested variables, then we will use multiple return statements for each block. We have create num1 and num2 variables for calculating both x and y values. We have nested variables under x calculation are only accessible to x value and can be used within that block or return statement. Similarly, we have nested variables under y calculation are only accessible to y value and can be used within that block or return statement. Each block of nested variables must end with a return statement. Though the variable names are same in x calculation block and y calculation block, it does not affect the calculation in any way. If x calculation block and y calculation blocks are considered as inner blocks, we have also created num1 at the top, which is available to whole calculation. The num1 variable at the top does not overwrite num1 variables inside x and y blocks. However, if we comment out num1 in x block, then num1 at the top will be available for return statement inside x block. So it is always better to create a unique variables at any level. So later on we won't have any confusion in calculation. Till now we have seen assigning a scalar values to variables. We can also assign table to a variable. In this measure we are calculating sales amount for East region. We have created a variable called East sales, which is holding East region sales filtered using filter function on region column. And we pass the East sales tables into sumx function, which is calculating the sales amount by multiplying quantity and unit price. The sumx function always receives East region sales from East sales variable. Like this, we can assign any number of variables with tables values. Let's try to filter the report using region slicer. As you can see, it always shows values of East sales only. It will return 0 when we select region other than East. There is one important note. We cannot return a variable which is assigned with table in a measure or calculated column. That will return an error. We always can return a single value from a measure or calculated column calculation. Hope you understood how variables are used in DAX. See you in the next video. Thanks.